LA, LA's finest rock. KSCA, Glendale, Los Angeles. Always a bit dodgy when we move over into the music hall. I'm Miralee Kelly. Today I'm joined by LA native Maria Mckee. Starting in 1983, she spent a couple of her teenage years singing and fronting the band Lone Justice. Some songs you might remember: Ways to Be Wicked, Sweet Sweet Baby, Shelter. Maria Mckee, the debut solo album, came out in '89. Followed by You Gotta Sin to Get Saved, an album that featured some of the Jayhawks, our friends the Jayhawks. And the brand new album is called Life is Sweet. And Maria, you look very sweet today.
Oh.
She's got this lovely long dress on, like something from maybe the early 20th century.
Oh.
And a little sweater around her shoulders.
Well, I've got Bruce's sweater on, which I normally wouldn't wear something this grubby, but no, I was just a little chilly, so.
Well, you look
I know,
fabulous.
It doesn't quite match, but I just
Actually, you matched the
sneeze.
green decor of the music hall very nicely.
And I also matched my radio rep from Geffen today, oddly enough. We wore
Life
the
is-
exact same color.
Life is Sweet is the new album, and you're going to start with a song from it, yes?
Yes, Life is Sweet. This one is for the girl who says she's unlucky in love. You deserve to have the world at your feet. And if one person, one man could be enough, then I wish it could be me. I wish it could be me. This one is for the boy whose daddy never had time for him. Wish I could build you a little house for you to hide in. I'd give you back your summers. I'd give you back all your summers. You still have summers. Life is sweet. Life is sweet. Life is sweet. Bittersweet. And the days keep rolling along. This one is for the girl who says those voices in her head never leave her alone. Don't listen to your teacher. You're not crazy. You're just smarter than the rest of them. Paint a picture, write a song, tell your story, bang a gong. Life is sweet. Life is sweet. Life is sweet. Bittersweet. And the days keep rolling along. Rolling along. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. This one is for the boy who's not allowed to be part of the gang. You don't need those losers. I think you're beautiful. And you meet a girl, you fall in love, and it doesn't work out. It won't be the first time, and they don't make a cure for that. So you eat your breakfast, read a book, open up your window, be alone. Life is sweet. Life is sweet. Life is sweet. Bittersweet. And the days keep rolling along. Rolling along. La da 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 da.
Maria McKee with us in the FM 101.9 Music Hall doing a solo acoustic rendition of the title track to Life is Sweet. That sounds a whole lot different than it does on the album. And your album really sounds a lot different from You Gotta Sin to Get Saved. How did you get from that point, sort of an R&B based raw album, to this, which, what do you have, like an orchestra on this new album?
Yeah, well, it's funny because I think that I've always sort of felt that I was being a good girl and doing the right thing if I sort of adhered to the Lone Justice idiom, which is something that we sort of established early on with the sort of roots rock kind of whatever, I don't know what you want to call it, post-punk thing, and we sort of established a sound, and it sort of worked for a lot of people in the media to sort of lump me into that category. And I think that deep down inside, I'd always had so many other musical ideas. And Bruce and I started working together 10 years ago after Lone Justice broke up. And we'd always had this way of working where I would write songs and then we'd go and demo them together. And the demos actually have always pretty much sounded the same. We've always used strings because Bruce is classically trained, and he plays keyboard and samples, and we'd always sort of made these lush pop sort of demos with very dramatic vocals and very lush strings, and we always had this dream in our heart to someday make an album that would adhere to our taste that way, and we just never had the opportunity until now. And I think that after the last record, I was sort of trying to hold on to this sort of Lone Justice dream, even though it wasn't fully, for me, indicative of my musical taste and my personality. I think that the attention that I received as a singer was, reached a zenith with Lone Justice. And I felt a sort of an obligation to the record company, to the people who had been supporting me all those years, to sort of fulfill this kind of dream. And I think that record I made last time was kind of like maybe trying to pick up where Lone Justice left off, and it just didn't work for me. And I really reached a point where I had to sort of do a lot of soul searching and say, I think that it's time for me to really be true, and not worry about what people are going to think, and just make a record that I love. And it was very natural for Bruce and I to do it because we'd always had this music, privately.
Can you explain for people who don't know what a demo is, who hears a demo, and because you're saying that you did make this music, why did it never get made?
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, I have a new A&R man now, and he's been the first person at Geffen who's actually heard one of these demos that I've been speaking of and really liked it and thought it should be made into an album.
So he's the liaison at the record label who okays what you're doing?
Yeah, Tony Berg. Hello, Tony Berg. Actually, I had a dream about him last night. I just remembered, but I won't go into that.
So the demo is something that the artist and maybe...
The demo, yeah. What happens is when you go to make an album, you write a bunch of songs, and then you go and you sort of demonstrate how they're going to be, replicated in the studio. And Bruce and I, when we'd make it down, we'd play the guitar, he'd do all the keyboards, and we'd sort of mix it down and turn it into sort of a mini record, like a mini version of the record. And we always had these production ideas that we were dying to use, but I think that people have always been so cautionary about my career, because early on there was so much expectation, because they saw me as this very young, talented person who had so much potential commercially and otherwise. And so I think that people have always been, been very cautionary about making sure I sang the right song, making sure I had the right producer, making sure I had the right band. We don't want to make any mistakes because we might impede the progress of what's going on. So I think that once we sort of tried every combination for success, and still commercial success, you have to admit, in America has eluded me to some point. So I think that people sort of relaxed and went, well, okay, she's got some instincts as an artist and some ideas, and so why don't we, we've tried sort of doing, like, almost trying to put Lone Justice back together in a way. And
on the last album.
Yeah, we tried, like, the very polished singer-songwriter thing, which, quite frankly, I feel constrained by because I'm a very, very elaborate personality, and I'm also quite hyperactive. Yeah.
No.
So, and my live show is very electric and very passionate.
Kinetic, yeah.
So, so for me to do the sort of quiet singer-songwriter, very credible, standing very still and, being very poetic, it wasn't necessarily natural either. So I think it just had to do with really stripping away all of the imagery that was around my head as far as what sort of artist I should be according to whoever is expecting a Maria McKee record, and just be true. And
well, let's put this in context here. We got Maria McKee back in control now. She knows what she wants to do. We were talking about Lone Justice. You want to do an older Lone Justice song and kind of get the vibe for what
Yeah.
you...
Yeah, I'm going to sing Shelter, and I'd like to dedicate this to a friend of mine. I don't want to be morbid, but, he died of AIDS last week, and so I want to dedicate, his name is Chip, and he had a good life, and he died peacefully, but I'd like to dedicate this song to his mom, Diane, and his sisters, Lisa and Kelly. Well, all right. You gave it all up for a dream. Fate proved unkind to lock the door and leave no key. You're unsure. Well, baby, I'm scared too. When the world crushes you, let me be a shelter, shelter from the storm outside. Let me be a shelter, shelter from the endless night. Disillusion has an edge so sharp, it tears at your soul, leaves a stain on your heart. I need you to wash mine clean. You felt it too, and you need me. Let me be a shelter, shelter from the storm outside. Let me be a shelter, shelter from the endless night. Your struggle with darkness has left you blind. I'll light the fire in your eyes. If you let me be a shelter, shelter from the storm outside. Let me be a shelter, shelter from the endless night. Let me be let me be let me be it's all I wanna do. I need down my life.
We're in the music hall with Maria McKee and her guitar and her beautiful dress.
Oh, thank you.
A song from the Lone Justice days. Lone Justice opened for you too, and I think it was '85, and then later you relocated yourself to Dublin.
Yeah.
Did the guys
That
in
was
you too?
predictable, huh?
Was that the reason? Was that the influence? Like,
Well, I think kind of. I know I've been hanging out with them a lot, over the years, and they're really great friends. And they sort of, I don't know, the way they spoke about Dublin and everything, I just was fascinated by the life there and the music there and everything. And I went for a visit in the late 80s, and I just enjoyed myself so much and met so many great people. I kept going back for visits. And I ended up staying. Actually, I had a boyfriend over there, and I just ended up staying put for a while. And I lived there for almost 3 years, and I still have a house there, which I own, and a godson there. So it's kind of a second home to me.
where are you living now?
I'm back in LA.
Oh, great.
I'm living on the road right now, but I'm
Which
back.
reminds me, you have some dates coming up. Friday night at the Ventura Theater, Tuesday the 9th at the El Rey Theater in L.A., and Wednesday night at the Galaxy Theater. And some of those dates were rescheduled. If anybody has tickets for the original shows, they will be honored. Living in Ireland, did that change the way you approach your music? Were you hanging with Irish bands or just...
Well, the one main influence, and it's so obvious 'cause it's not traditionally Irish musically at all, but the greatest liaison there for me that's inspired me and really helped me to blossom musically was my friend Gavin Friday, who was just in town doing some shows. I don't know if you saw him, but he and I are very, very close, and we have sort of a soulmate-ish musical compatriot sort of relationship, and he really helped to sort of groom the more theatrical elements that I'd always had and developed over the years, because initially, and this is really giving a lot away, but when I was a kid, I was kind of grooming myself for Broadway, and I'd always had destination that, sort of in my heart to do something along those lines. Like,
it still could happen.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I sort of wanted to be like Bernadette Peters or something, and then I discovered punk rock and started hanging out in clubs in LA, and and everything changed. And but Gavin Friday and I used to do a bunch of shows together in Dublin. We actually did a lot of benefits for a charity in Dublin called the Dublin AIDS Alliance, and we were doing a lot of cabaret music and a lot of I don't know, a lot of duet stuff, and it was and he's quite flamboyant and very, very wonderful to watch, and I learned a lot from him.
I know that on your last tour you did a real cornucopia of cover songs, and you were just talking about this cabaret stuff. Can we get something different out of you? Maybe one of those covers that you do in your set, or some of the more theatrical?
Oh boy, right now?
Yeah.
Oh God, that's tough, because we've pared it down to one cover.
Well.
And it's a John Cale song.
Oh.
But unfortunately, I don't play it on the guitar. Bruce plays it on the organ. So.
All right, then we'll let you do another. We'll let you do another new one from your new album, Life Is Sweet.
Okay.
Mckee with us in the Music Hall.
Okay. What should I do? Perfect Dress. Scar Lover? Perfect Dress. Send me color, pulled through the needle of you, torn up, I'm wearing it, what I wouldn't give to change the weather around you. You're never cold, I'm never cold. Lost as we spin, I'll sew you in this perfect dress, skin of our skin, woven our hands, silk is our breath, wear it for you. This perfect dress, this perfect room, this little death, birth without womb. You know that I live to tear riddle from riddle for you, but all I know, it's all I know. Lost as we spin, I'll sew you in this perfect dress, skin of our skin, woven our hands, silk is our breath, wear it for you, this perfect dress.
FM 101.9 in the Music Hall with Maria McKee. That was the perfect song to wrap everything up because you were talking about John Cale. That sort of reminds me of Dying on the Vine. I don't know if you know that song. Very theatrical sounding.
Yeah,
the
well, John
chord
Cale
changes.
has always been one of my biggest, greatest, most shining influences. So,
Well, I think everything you were saying about your album is right there in that song. It's theatrical, it's poetic, it's great, and you are
Thank
wearing
you.
the perfect dress today. It all ties together.
thank you.
We've been hanging out with Maria McKee. I'll give the information again on your dates so we make sure that you fill that house. You're at the Ventura Theater on Friday night, Tuesday the 9th at the El Rey Theater in LA, Wednesday night at the Galaxy Theater, and the new album Life is Sweet. Thank you for spending time with us.
Thank you for having me.